This catgirl situation is really bad, like very bad. She's an Annihility unit who relies on having another DPS in the team that can dish out significant damage, so Cypher can record that damage and then strike back at enemies with her ultimate. But the problem is, there's not a single team composition that desperately needs her presence. But disclaimer, that was before version 3 arrived. As the beta updates continue to roll out, good news started to pouring in for Cypher. That's why in today's video I'm going to talk about several version 3 updates that reveal some important changes made to Cypher's kit. Is it a good one or a bad one? Before we dive in, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe and share this video with future Cypher mains. So let's get this video started. Cypher is a 5-star limited character following the path of Annihility. She can apply a special mark called Patron, and when an ally attacks an enemy marked by it, Cypher will launch a follow-up attack as well. But that's not all, the Patron mark also records all the damage taken by the inflicted enemy. Thanks to one of her traces, damage dealt to other enemies will also be recorded, though at a reduced percentage compared to the main target. Once players feels the recorded damage is high enough, they can unleash it using Cypher's ultimate, which is a blast type attack. It deals true damage equal to 40% of the recorded value to the main enemy and 75% of that value to adjacent enemies. And that's where Cypher's real burst potential lies. The problem with Cypher in her earlier versions was that she did not fit into any teams. It was actually the opposite. She was a flexible sub-DPS, but because of that, no team really needed her. In the Face Out team, for example, Cypher could only trigger her follow-up attack once and had to use her ultimate to reset it, meaning she could not consistently help Fei Xiao stack her ultimate. It was only after unlocking Cypher's old EIDOLON 1 that she started to actually synergize with Fei Xiao. The same issue applied to Acheron teams, and to make matters worse, in version 2 Cypher got nerfed. Her ultimate energy cost was increased from 100 to 130. That made things even harder because her follow-up attack becomes slower to refresh. But in the version 3, the good news has finally arrived. First off, there's a change to one of her trace stats. Previously, it granted a 10% HP bonus, but now it's been replaced with effect hit rate. And honestly, this is a good change because in most of her abilities, and even her signature light cone, Cypher has the best chance to apply debuffs. This means there's always a risk that enemies might resist them, so any additional effect hit rate is definitely welcome and makes her character building much easier. Now we don't really have to chase effect hit rate stats on relics, we can just focus on stacking speed and crit instead. As for her skill, not much has changed aside from some rewarding. It still targets 3 enemies, applies a weaken effect to reduce their damage, and increase Cypher's attack by 30%. Now what truly elevates Cypher's performance is the change to her talent. Originally, she would launch a follow-up attack every time an ally attacked an enemy marked with Patron, but this could only be triggered again after she used her ultimate. In version 3, that condition has been changed to once per turn. Now Cypher can trigger her follow-up attacks more frequently, especially since she's designed to be a fast unit, meaning she gets more turns. With her ability to apply damage vulnerability and significantly boost the team's overall damage output, CIPHER V3 can now support Fei Xiao's performance really well, even better than Topaz in some cases. In addition to her talent, one of her traces has also been revamped. Previously, Cypher could passively reduce enemy defense by 30% just by being on the field. She also received 100% action advance at the start of each wave. Now her follow-up attack's crit damage gets a 100% boost, and instead of defense reduction, she applies 40% damage vulnerability to enemies simply by being present. This makes them take significantly more damage. Not only does this make her excellent for boosting Fei Xiao's ultimate stacks and total damage, but this trace also makes Cypher extremely reliable as an Annihility unit for debuffing enemies, especially at the start of new waves. Usually Annihility units are a bit disadvantaged in multi-wave battles, because once enemies are defeated, debuffs needs to be reapplied. But with this trace, Cypher no longer has to worry about that. As for her technique, it's mostly just receive some rewarding, no major changes there. Meanwhile, EIDOLON 1 and 2 have been swapped and slightly reworked. Originally, EIDOLON 1 allowed Cypher to store 2 follow-up triggers, meaning she could perform 2 follow-up attacks before needing to use her ultimate to reset the trigger count. Also, whenever Cypher attacked a target, there was a 120% best chance to inflict a 25% vulnerability debuff for 2 turns. Now in version 3, EIDOLON 1 has changed completely. Instead of extending the follow-up count, her recorded damage increases to 150% of the original value. Plus, whenever she uses a follow-up attack, Cypher's attack increases by 80%. On the flip side, what used to be EIDOLON 2 is now EIDOLON 1. But the double trigger effect has been removed, since her new talent already allows follow-up attacks once per turn, making that mechanic obsolete. So, what's the best and most realistic EIDOLON to aim for in this version? In my opinion, EIDOLON 2 is more than enough. When you pull for E2 Cypher, the total vulnerability she applies can go up to 70% when combined with her trace bonus. That's already insane, like a cracked version of Jiaochu when it comes to boosting team damage, but Cypher can also contribute damage herself. Even better, her debuff applies general damage vulnerability, not tied to any specific type, unlike Jiaochu who boosts ultimate damage, or Topaz who focus on follow-up damage. And since unlocking E2 also gives you E1, you will be boosting Cypher's personal damage at the same time, helping your team's main DPS clear enemies much faster. So in the current version, which one is more important, Cypher's EIDOLON 1 or her signature light cone? Back in version 1 and 2, her full potential and team flexibility were kind of locked behind EIDOLON 1. It allowed her to launch 2 follow-up attacks before needing to reset with her ultimate, which was super helpful for stacking Facial's ultimate. It also helped in Acheron teams, since her E1 back then let her apply vulnerability whenever she attacked, creating strong synergy. But now that everything has changed, EIDOLON 1 is no longer essential, unless your goal is to boost Cypher's personal damage. So in my opinion, her signature light cone is better pick in version 3. Not only does it give a massive speed boost, but it also brings back some Cypher's defense reduction utility by applying a 16% defense reduction to enemies. Now that her innate defense reduction has been replaced with general vulnerability, this LC makes her shine even more in her dual role as a debuffer and sub DPS. And it doesn't stop there. Once Cypher reaches 170 speed, the light cone unlocks its bonus effect, a base chance to inflict a debuff called Theft, another type of defense reduction. It doesn't stack, but the most recent application always stacks effect. This is especially useful in Acheron team comps because every time Cypher's attack, she alternates between applying different debuffs, either Bamboozled or Theft. That helps Acheron stacks her ultimate more efficiently. Compared to that using LC like Sweat Pearls, once you apply a defense reduction, reapplying it won't contribute to Acheron stack. So if you are still running Pela in your Acheron teams and happen to have Cypher's signature LC, this could actually be a great fit for her, but only if you can hit that 170 speed threshold. That's why in this version, going for Cypher's signature light cone gives you more value than her EIDOLON 1, which now has more limited function. Now speaking of that 170 speed requirement, the LC really pushed Cypher to hit that mark. But is it actually realistic? Well, let's break it down. Her base speed is 106, one of her traces gives 14, bringing her up to 120. She will definitely need speed boosts, adding another 25, making it 145. If you are using her signature light cone, you get 18% speed, which scales from base speed around 19, so her total becomes 164. That means you only need like 6 speed from substats, which is very doable. But if you are not using her LC, then you will need a flat 25 speed from substat to hit 170. That's like 5 speed from each relic, which is possible but definitely harder. So yes, hitting 170 speed is very achievable with her signature, and it is definitely more difficult without it. Now that Cypher has no longer relies on her EIDOLON 1, and with her niche more clearly defined, especially as a key support for Facial, it is safe to say that Cypher's role is now on par with Topaz in that team composition. Topaz is known for applying vulnerability debuffs, even reaching up to 50%. But her debuff is restricted to follow-up attacks only. Cypher on the other hand can apply a 40% vulnerability effect that is universal, meaning it works with any DPS type, not just follow-up based ones. That alone makes her a more flexible pick for various team setups. What truly makes Cypher more comfortable to use in Facial comps is her talent. Her patron debuff works similarly to Nambi's mark, but with more advantage. It prioritizes enemies with the highest rank, such as elite units or bosses. This means players won't need to waste a skill just to manually target the most important enemy, something that Topaz mark can't guarantee, since it applies to random enemy. Cypher also offers greater damage contribution to the team. Her ultimate deals true damage and is not limited to a single target hits, making her especially valuable in endgame content, where AoE DPS units are thriving right now. She can easily support Facial or even other hunt type units by cleaning up multiple enemies at once. That said, Topaz still holds a strong advantage in one critical area. She is an extremely skill point positive unit, while Cypher tends to consume more SP, which can be a drawback depending on the team setup. Thanks to the earlier comparisons, we now have a clearer picture of which characters actually work well with Cypher. One of the most obvious candidates, already mentioned in the previous section, is Fei Xiao. With Cypher's new talent, allowing her to trigger follow-up attacks repeatedly with a turn, she becomes a fantastic support for Fei Xiao's ultimate stacking. And it's not just about speeding up ultimates, our cat girl can also help Fei Xiao handle non-single target scenarios, making her a more versatile option for dealing with waves of enemies. But Fei Xiao is not the only one who benefits from Cypher's arrival. Let's not forget about Dr. Ratio. Even though his performance has dipped a bit lately, but who knows, Cypher might be exactly what Dr. Ratio needs to be relevant again, especially for accounts that don't have Mayday or Rappa. Like many other hunt units, Dr. Ratio suffers in AoE situations and requires consistent debuffs to perform well. But with Cypher providing free vulnerability, weakened from her skill, and even defense reduction via her LC, she becomes a reliable support, even in content that's more AoE focused. Speaking of debuff synergy, there's another standout pairing, Acheron. With Cypher high speed and the ability to repeatedly trigger false attack every turn, Cypher can provide Acheron with stacks at an incredible pace, especially when equipped with her signature LC. As discussed earlier, that light cone lets her alternate debuffs between Bamboozled and Theft, making her a consistent stack generator, unlike Sweat Pearls, which struggles with repeat applications. Outside of Acheron and Hunt units, you can also run Cypher with other DPS characters, such as Castoris for example. With Castoris' strong damage potential, especially when backed up by 3 beast buffs, Cypher's damage recording mechanic becomes even more effective, resulting in a massive ultimate hit when unleashed. And that wraps up this version 3 kit analysis for Cypher. So what do you guys think? Is Cypher finally heading in the right direction? Or does her kit still need some fine-tuning in future updates? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button, and don't forget to share this video with your fellow Cypher mains. I will see you humans in the next one.